Hi everybody, I'm here with Michael Jamieson today, and we're going to be just doing a quick interview and talking about his mental health and the things he's done in sport. How are you, Michael?
Yeah, good, thanks. All good. Pretty lucky to be out of the UK just now, given everything that's going on. So, all good.
You're very lucky. I'm just going to start off with, obviously, you've achieved a lot at the highest level of the sport, with the biggest thing you're doing, getting a silver at the Olympics in London, which is huge. How was the whole London experience? Because after London, you became quite a big swimming star, really.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lifetime ago now, almost. Yeah, I mean, I think, as you know, being involved in that sport, it's a pretty grueling process, before you get to that sort of level and stage. The Olympics are obviously the pinnacle for us. So it was, a decade or so in the making. I think reflecting back on that now, it was, one of the few meets kind of went into with no real nerves or anxiousness around a performance. I think sort of prepared the best way I could, and knew I'd sort of done everything in my power to do that. So there was none of the sort of usual nerves and apprehension. So I think there was a sort of calmness that came with that. But yeah, in terms of lifestyle and things, it was a massive change afterwards. I don't think you really realise the impact something like that can have until afterwards. So I was quite young at the time, looking back. 22, 23, and pretty much overnight, it sort of changes your life a little bit. I mean, we know within Olympic sport, it's not like you're making, mega bucks in comparison to a lot of other sports, but grateful to have the opportunity to do something like that, and had a pretty big impact.
So after that, I said about how you became a star. You obviously got a lot of media coverage, and leading to the Glasgow Games, am I right? You were an ambassador. So you had a lot of media coverage and that. Do you reckon that affected anything to do with your performance at those games? Do you reckon it affected you in any way leading up to them? Because obviously you had your heart arrhythmia at the same time the year before as well. So
yeah, I think things got a little bit more complicated for me, I guess, after the games. Performance wise, it was kind of exactly where I wanted. For the majority of the 2013 season, going into world champs and things, was ranked number one in the world, was swimming fast. I was, stronger, fitter than the previous year. And, after London, I thought that's exactly where I wanted to go, was kind of, kick on and try and dominate that event for the next 4 years and get close to and under that world record time. But yeah, things started to unravel a little bit, psychologically, but physically as well as a result. And a few mistimed injuries derailed the World Champs 2013. But being named an ambassador for those games was huge. Again, I think that's one of the things that most sort of grateful about looking back on my time in sport, is just that it doesn't happen. Having a home Olympic Games, and then I think I was the only athlete from Glasgow that went on to compete at Commie Games, as being an ambassador alongside people that had achieved 10 times as much as I had. Jeff Senesil, Usain Bolt, Billy Connolly, and things like that. It was awesome. I don't think that sort of pressure affected anything, because I'm sure as you would probably attest to, nobody sort of no external pressure match the pressure you put on yourself for a performance, for a best time or an improvement. So I think that that was the loudest voice in my head, was just my own one, looking to try and improve and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that there's one interview I remember that happened about 6 months before the games, and it was after the trials. So Commonwealth trials, I think I swam 2:08.0 or something, just off my best. But it was in Glasgow, there was no crowd, there was no atmosphere. It was a really, really poor meet. And I remember a journalist asking after that, so is your target to break the world record at Commonwealth Games? And I said, well, yeah, because it's only half a second away. Of course, like, it was so close to my best time. It was just a sort of routine answer to a question, and then the next thing I know, that was a lead article on the BBC Sports site and things like that, and it got a bit of traction. And the headline was, it was something a bit more confident than the way I'd stated it. It was like, Jamieson says he'll break the world record in Glasgow, and at the time I was like, I don't think that really bothers me, but there were quite a few people after the event were saying, oh, do you think that you were getting too confident or things like that? And, referring back to this article, and that started to really bother me, because it was just a routine answer that was taken out of context a bit. So personally, I don't think anything like that affected performance, but I can see from the outside why people would assume that or would ask that, and I think a lot of it related back to that article.
Yeah, I can understand, because you actually, well, this is my view on it, you didn't swim badly at those games at all, because obviously it took Ross Murdoch to go to 207.3, was it, to beat you. So it wasn't like you swam poorly at those games at all. So, but I found a quote that was in an article from when you retired, and it's from Ali Wyke, the head of performance at Scottish Swimming. And he said, Michael has been an inspiration to all within the sport. His dedication, professionalism, and resilience over the years produced some outstanding performances throughout his senior swimming career. How does it make you feel hearing a quote like that and knowing you made such a difference in the sport you loved, in the country you love, obviously, from where you're from?
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice to hear. I think still some of that feels like, I feel like a wee bit of a fraud almost, because I feel like my career at that level was so short, much shorter than I hoped it would be. But yeah, I mean, I've kind of spoken pretty openly about that over the years. I think it took me a while to sort of realise that I never really had like a proper aggressive, ruthless streak about wanting to win. I just wanted to sort of keep improving within myself. I wanted like respect of my teammates and coaches and things like that, in terms of my work ethic and the way that I approached sport. I think that was more important to me, and that's probably the reason why I never won a major title, because I don't think I had enough of that ruthless streak. I wanted to win, of course, but I don't think I had like an aggressive pursuit of I must win. It was just I must improve myself type thing. And I knew the way I chose to train, I tried to put myself in the best position to do that, and having the respect of that aspect was more important than the result. So, it's really nice to hear things like that, because I guess it means that things went the way I wanted it to. I just maybe don't have as many medals to show for it as I would like.
I think a lot of people, including me, still hold you in very high regard as a swimmer. You're obviously one of the batch of breaststrokers of this generation that's done pretty well. So I wouldn't put yourself down like that. But you mentioned there about just wanting to improve and wanting to get better. You now do CrossFit, don't you? Do you still hold that type of thing? Obviously, it's more of a hobby and it's just fun, but do you still have that attitude towards that now that you're doing something different?
Yeah, it's actually pretty topical just now, because I had a couple of surgeries over the last couple of years, just one or two on old injuries, and one or two others. But I got into it after that, so the start of last year, with the view to just sort of, putting on a bit of size, staying in good shape, and then things started to snowball a little bit, and I started competing in it, and then I could sort of feel those like obsessive behaviours coming back from the days of training full time, and the start of last summer, before sort of COVID restrictions came into place, I was effectively trying to juggle 2.5, three jobs and train 8-9 times a week. There's no reason for it at all, other than I just wanted to keep getting better at it. But it's good fun. I think I'm balancing it all right just now. Just doing a few sort of like local, like regional competitions in London and a few sort of national ones last summer, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, I think the challenge is just to keep trying to improve on that, but without letting it sort of take over again, like it would have done previously. But yeah, it's good fun. And to be honest, once you get into that circuit, you find there's quite a lot of ex-athletes from different sports trying to hang on to some of that competitive spark. A lot of ex-servicemen and women as well that are just needing a bit of routine. So it's funny how that type of individual that's had a lot of their life focused on, performance or performance elements in terms of pushing your body and the physical aspect, they all kind of find each other again and come back.
It's funny you say that, because I feel like I fall into that. Obviously I was never at the level you were, but I started running in lockdown, and then I suddenly found myself running 7 times a week. I joined an athletics club where I was at uni, and I just started getting that hunger again. But then I got COVID and stuff, so it kind of calmed down. But it's exactly what you just said there. It's those behaviors that you just always inside of you, and I just feel like most athletes can't get rid of them. You've said in past interviews and podcasts that you obviously, it's pretty open that you struggled mentally through a lot of your career, leading up to Glasgow and after you retired. What I find the most impressive, actually, for someone that's been through mental health problems, is that you managed to keep going, keep training at the highest level throughout all those years. Still, obviously, you went to stuff like the Olympic trials in 2016 and all those things. How did you manage to keep yourself going when you were going through such a tough time mentally?
Well, I mean, I think I knew like sort of mid to late teens that I had certain tendencies that were probably going to have to be addressed at some point. But I think for anyone that's sort of been through bits like that, there's a period where you recognise it's going on, but you kind of feel like you're in control of it. I mean, you're not in control of it given the nature of what happens in those sort of low periods, but I mean, control in the sense that those periods only last for a few days or a week or whatever it is, but you know that you'll come out the other end of it. I guess after London, it started to accelerate a little bit. Lost control over those aspects a wee bit. Those periods were lasting longer. As I mentioned, those a couple of mistimed injuries sort of compounded that. And then it sort of relates back to just the position I was in going into Glasgow. I had that issue with my heart, tore a tendon in my bicep. I felt like I was, desperately trying to hold things together just to get through the Commonwealth Games. And I think early 2014, I sort of thought, I don't think I've put enough training back to back to get into 207 low, 206 at the time, which was the target territory. So then it was a case of let's just get in there the best shape I can, and fingers crossed it'll be enough. Turned out obviously it wasn't, but I look back to competing in Glasgow, and I remember super vividly being in the call room before I came out for the final, knowing that I had like 20 of my close mates all up in the gallery with my family wearing t-shirts and all that, like all having a great time, like looking to support me. And like I remember waiting to come out and thinking I'd rather be anywhere else in the world than trying to do this race right now. I just felt absolutely nothing, had no adrenaline, no buzz. And I just felt like a wee bit of a fraud because I was in such a privileged position, being an ambassador for the games. I was super lucky. I had, at the time, I was like, had sponsors, BMW, Speedo, British Gas, BP, Nike. Some amazing stuff was happening, but just wasn't in a position where I could enjoy it. But that wasn't because of the end result. It was because I knew I wasn't going to be physically capable of swimming that time that I wanted. So therefore, it was kind of an all-in or all-out mentality. And I thought, well, if I'm not going to swim 2:07.0, I don't want to do this. And things sort of started getting pretty out of control after that. I think 2015, like obviously psychologically, I was starting to recover a little bit, but at the same time, I was still struggling with a few niggling injuries. Bath had closed at the time for a revamp, so the team there were relocated to Millfield. So I was training in Millfield Monday to Saturday. Like living on a farm, I had absolutely no life there at all, which I don't think was the right thing for me. I was kind of just, I was trying to battle one thing, but then I had no escape because I was just sort of living on this farm at Millfield School and trying to train there, so I couldn't really get away from it. So again, World Trials 2015, I kind of went in there hoping that I could magically pull something together, but looking back, at training results and things, I knew I wasn't going to be swimming 2:08 or a time that would qualify. And then, Rio Olympic Trials was, I absolutely knew I was going to, I felt like an old limp racehorse there being led away to slaughter because I knew there was no chance I was qualifying. I knew there was absolutely no chance of it. I wasn't fit, I wasn't healthy. But the only reason I went there was because I needed to force myself to give myself that closure, So it was, people were, asking, do you think you can still qualify? Or there was still some questions being asked around, things in training look all right. Like he looks okay, he's going to pull something out here and qualify. But I knew there was absolutely no chance of that. So I think looking back on that, it was quite a brave decision to do that. I didn't have to go to trials. I could have just quietly gone out the back door, but I wanted to put myself in that position I needed the evidence to sort of stare me right in the face to say this is done. You need to walk away from it. So yeah, I mean that was horrible. Racing and seeing people swim away from me that I knew that I should be matching or on my best day ahead of, and then walking out through that press area and back past coaches and friends and stuff over the years, and nobody knew how to speak to me. It was horrendous.
I bet that last phrase ties into my next question. But firstly, I'm going to ask, you said there about how you're living in a farm. It felt like you didn't really have a life at that point, and the fact that you were just in Millfield, living in a farm in the middle of the nowhere. So do you think it's important for swimmers to have a life outside of swimming? Like, obviously I was never allowed to play football. I was never allowed to play rugby. I was never allowed to do anything like that being at Ellesmere. Do you think it's important trying to get kids to do those activities to make sure that they've got a life outside of swimming, so it's not just all the pressures on that? Yeah,
don't get me wrong, it's a difficult thing to balance, but I think if you go through, if you look at a much younger age group, sort of preteen development of motor skills and movement competencies, a multi-sport background goes hand in hand with success and development in sport. That's almost undeniable with the amount of evidence that's out there. Once you get into youth and junior international type standard, it obviously becomes a bit more difficult because you need to bank certain hours to improve and get certain adaptations to progress in your own named sport. But there's still room there to unwind and to have hobbies. And I think for me that was one of the areas that changed. That it wasn't a hobby from quite a young age. It changed from a hobby to a vocation to an obsession, and I just wouldn't allow myself to do anything else that could potentially derail my plans in the pool. So, and I think a lot of like full-time athletes have a similar mindset. You're worried that if you dilute your focus on your main priority, that you're effectively sacrificing results. And I think that's an education piece that needs to be changed. I think that's a cultural issue. that we have, particularly within UK sport, because as we know, there's not a great deal of financial reward for 99% of Olympic athletes. So if you feel like you're going to jeopardise your funding selection, your earnings, then it becomes a huge decision, and you're going to make the decision that benefits your life before your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I'm not saying you should be out playing, maybe in your case, full scale 11-a-side 90-minute matches, because that's obviously going to have an impact. But there's got to be some escape there, doesn't there? There's got to be some sort of balance where you can enjoy all the things.
Yeah, I personally totally agree, because in my own case, I don't think once I ended up having to stop swimming, I hadn't played football in 7 years, and I tried to play with my mates and could barely kick a ball. So it was like stuff like that. And then so the next one is in regards to the answer you did before. You said about you went to trials and you knew it was over. I heard you quote that, and that was really big for me. And so you said about facing your demons there. And then within a year and a half, you started, I might butcher this name, Natare West London with your mate Craig Gibbons. How did you manage to pick yourself up from that point in your life in 2016, where you said was horrible, walking past the press and everything, to then starting your own club, and you seem in a much better place from that? How did that year and a half, how did you turn it around?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think initially walking away from the sport, I didn't think I'd be back at all. I didn't want to be back at the time. I wanted to just kind of focus on other areas and just get away from it. So I mean, initially just done a bit of solo traveling. I kind of dove headfirst into a lot of yoga. I was playing golf at the time, was like learning on meditation and breath work and things, traveling around Central and South America for a bit. And then that was a sort of rebuilding process, like a rewiring almost, just to sort of finally put all the other stuff to bed and move on. And I think then there was just an opportunity that came up to start something a little bit different. It didn't really feel like we were starting a regular swim team. It felt like we were starting a pathway for youth sport, and it wasn't really pigeonholed to swim. So we were able to sort of build our own philosophy that includes elements like breathwork, yoga. It's a bit more of a holistic approach to training. Anyone who's involved in the sport knows that London, it's not really produced many swimmers of note. To be honest, it's difficult to transition from age group to youth, and then from youth to senior. Logistical issues, education options, facilities on hand. It's a really difficult place to do a sport like swim. So I guess there was just an opportunity there to do something a little bit different. And then, to be honest, just the lifestyle that came with that meant that there were other elements that were important to me that I could still maintain. Training myself, that was big. I didn't want to sacrifice that. And then just a few other sort of, I've got a little business of my own and one or two other projects I'm involved with a couple of other brands and charities. So they were all things that I didn't really want to let go. So I needed to find an option that I'd be able to manage everything. So, being able to work with your mates and something that you're both, there's a couple of other close friends involved in the project now as well, as we've grown the last couple of years. So, it's similar passions that we've got, and it's been quite good fun exploring that.
Yeah. You obviously you're now a head coach there. How has your journey and your experiences as a swimmer, as an athlete, affected how you are now as a coach? And what can coaches do to help swimmers now that are going through a tough time, maybe tough times like you were, or having mental health problems? Because I think personally we're seeing it quite a lot in sport now.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite difficult. I mean, there's no rule book. You've got to. I think you've got to go with your gut, and trust your instincts. It's all based on communication and your experience. So I mean, I guess I'm always wary of you don't want to be preaching, but it's trying to avoid acting like you have all the answers, or it's difficult to get that balance. But I think with the age group we have, it's I think it's making sure you're available. I think for a lot of kids now, it's so evident where the challenges are, especially in central London. Like, the academic pressures are enormous, and as we both know, I think when you're looking at applying for colleges, universities and things, it's no longer enough just to have that academic profile. There's got to be extracurricular subjects, there's got to be second languages, there's got to be musical interests, there's got to be some sort of charitable or volunteer cause you're passionate about. And for early, mid and late teens, trying to balance all that and put that full CV together is super challenging. So I think what's happening is kind of similar to reflections of my own journey. It's no longer a hobby. It's all of that becomes, it's for a return. Nothing. I don't think that many kids now are doing it just out of pure love for the sport or personal development or social aspects. It's for other reasons. It's for the CV. It's for the university application. It's from parental pressures. It's other external factors. And I realise that's a bit of a sweeping generalisation, but from my own experience over the last couple of years, I think that is quite a big factor.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And one of the things I noticed when I was falling out of love with the sport, obviously mine was over a few years, but I realised, I think you touched on it a bit earlier, that I think I loved winning or loved achieving more than I loved swimming, which is quite a sad way to look at it for me personally. But I think, yeah, I wonder what your take is on that. Do you think a lot of kids just, the top level ones, obviously, the higher level ones are just in it for the winning, or do you think a lot of it is still people love the sport?
I can appreciate that for sure. I think, for a sport like that, you have to love the process. I don't know anyone that doesn't in some way love the process of, everything that's involved with training development. Because as we know, like, winning's difficult.
Yeah, very.
Hardly anyone wins. Hardly anyone wins. There's only one time, and I don't just think that's. Yeah, the goal to win doesn't really sit with me. There's too many aspects to performance that affect that. There's too many uncontrollables. Like, I think you aspire to win. I don't know if the goal is to win. It only becomes a goal to win when you're within shooting distance of winning. When you're 1% from it, then it becomes a performance-driven target. Up until that point, just my view, it's an aspiration to get there. But again, that might be the reason why I didn't. So,
you were a lot more than me, who I say I liked winning, but I didn't exactly win much. So, hi guys, it's Harry again. Sorry for the abrupt ending there. Unfortunately, I never actually said thank you to Michael on the record, but when I pressed the stop of the record button, we did speak for another 5 minutes afterwards, and I gave my thanks then, and we had a nice chat. So once again, I'd just like to say thank you to Michael for his time. It was honestly inspiring listening to him and having a nice interview and chat with him. I never expected this to happen, so it was really insightful. I really enjoyed it, and I'd like to also say to Alan Bircher, who helped set this up for me, thank you to you as well. Without you, I would never have got this opportunity. So Honestly, I really enjoyed making this video of doing this interview. It was a great experience, and hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it and took something from it, because I thought Michael was great today, and hopefully you'll carry on watching my videos in the future. Maybe Michael will. Nah, I'm joking. Obviously he won't, but just like to say thank you again to him, to Alan, and to you guys for watching. So I'll see you soon. Bye.